way from face of log to face of log. Once you get that secured and in place, you're ready to put on that next course of logs. Once you get that log course in place, you're going to go ahead and use your level. Going to plumb up the log, make sure your gaps are tight, make sure everything's lined up. Center up everywhere you have a dado slot, because later on you're probably going to be putting some type of T-jam system in this to help hold it tight. So you're going to want to go ahead and put those in, line them up. Go ahead and drive down your first fastener.
Spot one.
Yeah. Now it's critical that you check for plumb with your level now. If you're in a doorway, and you'll notice that this log's overhanging a little bit, we're going to talk about moving a log so that it makes your wall plumb or gets in line. The first thing you're going to do after driving that fastener, you're going to take a sledgehammer and a board. What you don't want to do on these logs, if you're especially on the butt ends of the logs where you've got a saddle notch, you've got a dovetail corner, you don't want to take that sledgehammer and just pound on the end. The reason for that is that sledgehammer, the face of that will close the grain of that log. And when you go to stain that log afterwards, everywhere that you've used that face of the log and it's closed that grain, the stain's going to take differently. Keep in mind this is all finished material, so you don't want to strike it, especially with a framing hammer. So what you're going to do is every time you hit the log, you're going to use a board in between it. Put down one fastener, that way it keeps the bounce out of the log. If you weren't to put that fastener in there, every time you hit it, it would just bounce back and forth. By putting that in, it puts friction in between the two courses of logs. So you can take your sledgehammer on the end, take your board, give it a couple shots until that lines up on that log. Once that lines up perfectly and you're plumb, you're ready to move on. Now with your square log, your dovetail corners, because you've had so much taken out because of the angles and stuff, you want to make sure that when you fasten that corner that you're fastening with a shorter lag screw or log hog. The reason for that is you want to make sure that the threads of this fastener only fit in the log below it. And you can see by the way they're cut out and the angles that it's a lot thinner at that point than the full stack height of the log. In your round systems, when you've got that saddle notch and you've got that overhang that lines up, you're going to take that fastener, same fastener that you'd use throughout the logs, and most of our 8s and our 9s, they all use an 11-inch fastener. You're going to take that 11-inch fastener, you're actually going to put it on the overhang, on that outside 6 inches. That way it can tie those tight together. Because of the dovetail having space in between each one of the courses, you're actually going to put this right in the center. With a round log, anywhere in that center where the two logs intercross, you don't want to put any type of fasteners. The reason for that, chances are you're going to have threads in two different logs because of the way they're cut, and you're going to end up restricting that settling. So on the round log, you're going to put one close to the end, and then on the outside of the corner. On the square log, you're going to use your standard 15-inch or 16-inch fastener down the length of your log, and then in the corner you're going to use a shorter one. And this is a 9-inch fastener to tie in that corner. Again, you want to make sure that you're using that level, make sure everything's plumb and tight before you fasten that down. Now for demonstration purposes, we're not going to put any more type of the gasket on here. We're not going to put any glue or adhesive in between the logs or any dado blocks in. We're just going to continue up with our courses. Now you'll notice we've notched the tongues out of this. The reason for this is going to be the start of our window. This is going to be an extremely short wall, but it's going to give you all the basics of our system. When we put this in place, we want to make sure that everything lines up. We're going to start fastening it down. Now keep in mind you want to consider your electrical. When you're approximately 2 to 3 courses of the log off the subfloor, depending on the stack height of your log, you want to make sure you start considering electrical outlets for the inside of your house. Once you figure out where you want to put your electrical, on the outside or the inside of your wall, you're going to be ready to start drilling for that electrical. Now, you'll want a drill bit that's going to go all the way through whatever course of logs you have to reach, 16 to 18 inches up, all the way through down into your subfloor, right through that OSB into the open cavities in your subfloor. What you want to do when you drill that, place it on top of the log, and you want to give it a slight tilt inward. That way, as you're going down through each one of the logs, you're getting closer and closer to the edge of that band down below, down into your subfloor. So you want to make sure that that breaks out through the OSB, down into that subfloor down below, so that you can access that hole after the fact. Now you're going to drill this down all the way through each course of logs, all the way down to the bottom. Then you're going to make sure you clean out all of those chips in there. Once you've done that, depending on whether the electrical box is supposed to be on the inside or the outside of your log, you're going to back cut it. You want to use a chainsaw at that point to back cut it. What you're going to do is where you have that 1-inch hole drilled down into that log, you're going to go to the back side of it if it's an inside box. You're going to go to the inside of it if it's an outside box. You're going to go ahead and you're going to start flat. You don't want to put it in like this because as soon as you do that, it's just going to want to kick up. You're going to put it in there flat. You're going to start working right behind that hole. As you get down and you've got wood on the outside of it holding that bar from kicking up, you're going to slowly start to raise this up till you get it vertical. Then you're going to do a plunge cut right down through the back side of that hole, approximately halfway through your log. That way you know you have access to that hole and you've been able to cut out the back side of that box. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and put your chainsaw away, your drill away, take a galvanized nail right there on the inside of your log or the outside of your log, depending on where you want your box. Go ahead and drive that right into the center of where that hole would be on the back side. After you've dried in the house, you've stacked all your logs, you've got it roughed in, you've got the roof on, you're ready to do your rough electrical, you're going to come back at that time with your little small handy box. You're going to place it over that galvanized nail that's still there in the wall, and you're going to trace all 4 sides. Once you've traced all 4 sides, you're going to use your drill, 3/8 drill all 4 corners. Once that's been done, you can either use a jigsaw if you have a long enough blade, or a sawzall, and go ahead and cut away those 4 lines from hole to hole. This will allow you, if you back cut with that chainsaw, to go ahead and pull that center section of wood out, and it'll come out. If you put that at a taper to the outside, if you taper your cuts outward from that hole, the back of that piece of wood is going to be wider than the front of the hole. So you want to make sure they're fairly straight or tapered in. You can clean them up later. That block will drop right out. Then you're going to go ahead and fish your wire up through the subfloor, just like in standard construction, into that hole. Go ahead and set your box, put everything in place, and you'll be ready to go with your internal or your external electrical on those first few courses of logs.